Out of 380 Marines who carried flamethrowers on Iwo Jima, only 18 survived. That's a death rate of 94%. Their life expectancy on the battlefield was just 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Imagine landing on a beach, strapping 70 pounds of gasoline to your back, and knowing that by the time you counted to 240, your life was likely over. The flamethrower was the Marines' most feared weapon. It could clear bunkers that nothing else could touch, but for the men who carried it, it was more of a death sentence than a weapon. This is the story of why almost every flamethrower operator on Iwo Jima died. The Island of Fire. Iwo Jima was tiny, just 8 square miles of volcanic rock, sitting in the middle of the Pacific between the Marianas and Japan. From the air it looked barren, like a lump of black ash rising out of the ocean. But in 1945, it became one of the most valuable pieces of land in the entire world. American B-29 bombers were flying from the Marianas to Japan on long missions. Their route passed directly over Iwo Jima. That meant Japanese radar could track them, and fighters could rise from the island to intercept them. If the US captured it, they would have emergency landing strips for damaged bombers, a forward base for fighter escorts, and a platform for heavier bombing runs on the Japanese homeland. The Japanese understood this as well as the Americans did. Losing Iwo Jima meant bringing the war closer to Japan itself. It meant exposing the home islands to relentless bombing. They had to hold it at all costs. The defenders' strategy. General Tadamichi Kuribayashi was chosen to command the island. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Kuribayashi was not reckless. He knew this was a battle he couldn't win, but he also knew that if he could make the Americans pay dearly for Iwo Jima, he could delay the inevitable invasion of Japan. Time was his only weapon. Kuribayashi studied previous island battles, like Tarawa and Saipan. On those islands, the Japanese had defended the beaches, only to be annihilated by American naval bombardment before the Marines even landed. He refused to make the same mistake. Instead, he ordered his men underground. 11 miles of tunnels were carved into the volcanic rock. Bunkers, pillboxes, artillery positions, and command posts were all connected beneath the surface. Every inch of the island was pre-sighted for artillery. Every landing zone was within overlapping fields of fire. There would be no front lines, only a network of hidden strongholds designed to bleed the Marines inch by inch. The invasion on February 19th, 1945. After days of naval and air bombardment, the Marines stormed the beaches. The coastline looked flattened, the earth churned by countless shells. American commanders believed little could have survived, but the Japanese had been waiting. The first Marines waded through deep volcanic ash that swallowed their boots. Tanks and trucks bogged down immediately. It was impossible to dig foxholes. Still, the first waves landed without resistance. For nearly an hour, it was eerily quiet. Then Kuribayashi gave the order. The island erupted. Mortars, machine guns, and pre-sighted artillery unleashed a storm of fire. Marines were cut down in clusters, trapped on the beaches with nowhere to hide. Entire companies were shredded in minutes. It was one of the most brutal ambushes in American military history. The Pillbox Problem. As Marines fought inland, they encountered the full scale of Kuribayashi's defenses. The pillboxes were the worst, reinforced concrete bunkers, almost invisible from the outside, with narrow firing slits that gave machine gunners perfect fields of fire. Many were built in zigzag patterns, so grenades tossed inside did little damage. Some were so well camouflaged that Marines walked right past them, only to be gunned down from behind. Even when a bunker seemed destroyed, Japanese troops would reappear minutes later, crawling through tunnels to reoccupy it. The Marines were fighting an enemy who seemed to vanish and reappear at will. Explosives could sometimes clear a pillbox, but not always. That left only one option: the flamethrower. The flamethrower. The M2 flamethrower was terrifying to see in action. 2 large fuel tanks strapped to the back, a smaller tank of compressed nitrogen in the middle, and a long wand with an igniter at the end. It could spray a stream of burning gasoline 20 yards. Inside a bunker or cave, it turned the air itself into fire. Temperatures spiked to 2,000 degrees. Oxygen was consumed in seconds. Even if the defenders weren't directly hit, they suffocated. But the weapon had severe limits. A full tank carried just 7 seconds of fire. That meant bursts of 1 or 2 seconds at a time. Then you were empty, and you had to retreat under fire to refill. Using it meant getting dangerously close to the target. You had to crawl or rush forward, reach grenade range, and then unleash fire, all while being shot at. And once you fired, there was no hiding. A flamethrower was loud, bright, and instantly recognizable. A walking target carrying the flamethrower made you the #1 target on the battlefield. The 70-pound tanks slowed you down, and 1 bullet could ignite the fuel. Japanese soldiers concentrated everything they had on the flamethrower operator. Many never even survived their first mission, and being captured was worse than being killed. Japanese troops despised flamethrower operators above all others. If captured alive, torture was certain. One Marine's flamethrower misfired near a cave. Japanese soldiers dragged him inside. His squad could hear his screams for 2 days. There was nothing they could do to help. The horror of the job. Even those who survived had to live with what they'd done. Flamethrower operators saw the effects of their weapon at point-blank range. They heard the screams, they smelled the burning. It left scars that never healed. Some operators used a tactic called a wet burst. They sprayed unlit fuel into a bunker first, soaking everything inside. Then they followed it with an ignited burst, turning the entire structure into a firestorm. It was effective, but unimaginably horrific. Malfunctions were another danger. A faulty igniter, a sudden gust of wind, or a hit to the tanks could turn the weapon against its operator. There was almost no margin for error. Flame tanks. The Marines eventually brought in Sherman flame tanks, replacing the main gun with a flamethrower system. These could fire streams up to 100 yards and carried hundreds of gallons of fuel. They were devastating, wiping out bunkers that had resisted everything else. But even the tanks became instant targets. The moment a flame tank fired, every Japanese gun zeroed in. And inside that steel shell, sitting on a lake of gasoline, every crewman knew they were one lucky hit away from being incinerated. The price paid. The flamethrower was brutally effective. It cleared bunkers and caves when nothing else could, but the cost was catastrophic. Out of 380 flamethrower operators on Iwo Jima, only 18 survived. That's not just a statistic. That's nearly an entire generation of men burned away in a single battle. Those who lived carried scars, physical, psychological, or both. They had seen and done things few could imagine. For them, the war never really ended. Legacy today, the flamethrower is remembered as one of the most terrifying weapons of the Second World War. It symbolized both human ingenuity and human cruelty, the lengths men will go to in order to survive and win. On Iwo Jima, it was the Marines' most feared weapon, and for those who carried it, the most dangerous burden of all. Out of 380 men, only 18 came home. Their story is one of courage, horror, and sacrifice on one of the bloodiest battlefields of the Pacific War. If you want to hear more untold stories of World War II, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because history is far more brutal than you think.